Hey everyone, what the heck's going on? This is Kurt, and we're back with another video exploring the world of retro Warhammer. So, the last time we did one of these, it's been a few weeks, we looked at the 1991 Citadel Blue Catalog. That was mostly their science fiction stuff. This is the Citadel Miniatures Red Catalog from 1991, and as you may have imagined, this is mostly fantasy. But before we dive in, I want just to put a plug in for Stuff of Legends. It's this website that I'm viewing everything through. They have a very broad collection of old catalogs from Citadel and Games Workshop. Definitely take a peek when you get a chance, and of course, hit the Support SOL button down here at the bottom of the page. It'll take you to a spot where you can make a donation to help keep the website running and help keep it free. So, let's dive right in. So just starting off, this is an identical cover except it's red. The other one was blue. I checked. I compared model to model, and yep, it's exactly the same. I mean, I didn't really draw attention to this before, but examining the models on the cover, obviously you have your fire dragon, swooping hawk. This looks like a historical miniature, maybe. You don't see many of those from the old Warhammer historical days. That's not a named character, I think, but it's just an orc boy from the Bad Moons. And this looks like Titanicus, or Epic. I think they called it Epic then. Some old orky stuff, some old Eldar stuff. Not much of an indication about what's inside, of course. Here's the table of contents. You've got all the factions from the time: orcs and goblins, elves, dwarves, Skaven. Only one set of Skaven. I find that interesting. Some box sets on Nazgul on Winged Beast. That's Lord of the Rings. Fellowship of the Ring. When was this? This was 1991. I didn't know they did this stuff yet. I know they acquired the license in the 2000s, but I wasn't aware that they had done things prior to that. So anyway, humans. You got the Knights of the Empire, Bretonnians. That'll be exciting. Chaos, the bad guys. That'll also be cool to look at. And then Monsters Undead, Blood Bowl, and some plastic stuff. So this, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last video, but I tend to be more interested in the fantasy stuff than the science fiction stuff. I like the science fiction stuff. In fact, it was the science fiction stuff that got me into Warhammer at all. But having discovered Warhammer Fantasy, especially the older stuff, I can just say that it's something that definitely interests me more. So I'm really excited to see what's in store for this catalog. Wow, these these are interesting. These are quite old. It's interesting to see, look, all the champions, they all have the same pose, just with different weapons. They seem almost identical. There's a few different ones. These are quite different from what you'll see today. More orc boys. There's kind of something about them. Kind of reminds me of the Cruel Boys that just came out in Age of Sigmar. They're very similar to this, at least in terms of, I don't know, some of the accoutrement that you're seeing here. Especially this gong banner. That looks very much like something you might see out of the Cruel Boys. Of course, the Cruel Boys are more hobgoblin than orc, but still, the sculpts, there's very clearly some inspiration drawn. Now, these orcs are very diminutive. They're short. They look more like goblins. But they're titled orcs, so that makes me curious what the goblins look like. Unless they're switching between the two without indicating such. But no, they're saying these are the boys, which would be the main battle line unit for the orcs. Now, here's the big uns. Okay. So here's the distinction. These are more of the orc that I'm accustomed to. Alright. Giant black orcs. Alright. Yeah, this is the stuff. I wonder if at this point they had Grimgor Ironhide. He's a named character for the orcs and goblins faction. He was a black orc. Nope, doesn't look like that. They just have the battle line units here. Savage Orc Boys. Yep, these guys These guys look like they have some health issues that need to be taken care of here. Orc Error Boys. Wow. I said this with the last catalog, and I'll say it again with this one. What really shocks me are the variety of poses and how you could purchase these things according to whichever pose you wanted. Today, you buy a box, and you get what you get. You know, they'll sculpt 10 individual models, sell it to you in a box for $50, and you have very little choice in what you can build. Now, of course, the poses are more dynamic, the models are more attractive and appealing. They're even easier to put together. There's been a lot of thought put into it that way. The level of detail that comes out when you paint, I mean, it's a superior model. But that's something that they've sacrificed to do that. And they've sacrificed this level of granularity when it comes to your whole units. But I would say, you know, like, some of these might be one solid piece. Just one big chunk of lead or pewter. Whereas today, if you were to build a battle line unit like the Error Boys, you could have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different pieces in the same per model here. So, they've lost something, but in other ways they've gained it. I think what's nice about this is it gives you the option to buy as many as you like. Instead of having to purchase a box of 10, you could purchase, say I needed 5 more, I could just buy 5 here this way. And I could choose which ones I purchased. Crossbow, okay. More of the Arrow Boys. Or Gruntas and Snortas. Oh yeah, that's right, they rode boars. That's awesome. Those are some pretty good boar models, though. They look like boars. There's a decent amount of detail in the fur. Man, this guy's sick. I love him. His skinny little legs, and he's got the Viking horn helmet and the Morning Star. Now, this is interesting. This looks more like a vampire's undead sort of banner. More Gruntas and Snortas. Gobos. Here's the goblins. Okay, I'm having a hard time seeing major differences. I'm going to go back. Yeah, see, it looks like the orcs have larger faces and heads, and have more of like a, I don't know, look more like a monkey. Then you look at the gobos, the goblins, and they look less like that, I guess. The proportions are a little different. Yeah, the ears, you can really see it in the ears, like, especially down here. Are those ears I see? I think they are. Boy, these have come a long way. More gobos, swords, axes, everything like that. That guy looks great. More gobos. Oh yeah, the fanatics. They have these huge iron balls that they swing around, use the momentum to just go bananas. And that's neat. They're wrapped up in them here. That's a nice touch. Hammer and net. Those are cool. I do like the goblins. And the Gobbo Wolf Boys, yeah. Those are interesting. They look really small. So this is the complete unit. They're pretty cool. Gobbo Stickas. We got more archers for the goblins. Snotling attack cart. I've seen one of those before somewhere. This is cool. It's got the pump. Snotling pump wagon. And the Snotlings. Now, I think they're a type of goblin. They're tiny, though. With huge noses. These Snotlings are so numerous that it is impossible for you to order specific ones. But we will try and send as many different ones as we can. Wow. How many were there? There's 9. 18 plus 9 is 27. I guess that counts as 1. 36 plus 5, 41. Those are neat. I like those a lot. I don't know why, they're just weird. I think that's what I like about it. Goblin battle chariots. These kits seem to have a lot more pieces. Well, comparatively, right? Something like this today would have a ton of pieces. I just put together even something that's not from the modern day, but from a newer day, with the corpse cart. Actually, I have it right here beside me. And, you know, it looks like it's about the size of a chariot, maybe a little bigger. The number of pieces it had were a lot for its day. I think it probably had somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 pieces. Could be more, could be less. But looking at these, you've got the two drivers, couple wheels, the chassis, the right side, left side, and that's how you put it all together. It's just there's not very much there at all. So that is something interesting to see, that there were some kits that had more pieces to it, but it still is nowhere near even the intermediate days, sort of the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, when the kits moved to plastic, the majority of them, or resin. A skull crusher. Okay, same story as the last time, but this is kind of a neat model. Look at that picture. Really hard to see. But these look like the BRETONNIANS fighting against one of those orcs. Yeah, orcs. Really hard to tell. A lead belcher. That eventually became an ogre unit, I believe. Here, it looks like, are those snotlings? No, they look like goblins. The man mangler. Oh, that's nice. I like that. The shields. The carved face. That's a nice kit. Orc war machines. The bolt throwers. Yep. The rock chukka. These are neat. I've seen the newer versions of those on the tabletop. And these, to me, they look cooler. They look more orcish. When I say cooler, I really mean they look like they fit in with the range better than the newer ones. This has a certain cartoonish appearance to it that I think the orcs have always really exemplified. Goblin chariot, I don't think that's significantly different than the other one we saw. Wood elves, okay. Now these are guys who never really got a range update before this game was canned. They look pretty nuts. Their proportions are all off, so like their arms. There's something about it that I kind of like. And it's not true nostalgia, right? Because I didn't grow up playing these. But there's something about them that just, I don't know. It's interesting. The two swords. Like, these guys are basically the same pose. He's got an orc head. That's kind of neat. Wood elves. So just to, if we have people watching who are not familiar with what I'm talking about here, when we're talking about the newer range of models, just to give you a comparison. These are the new elves, okay? This is what the new range looks like. You take a look at this model, the level of detail that you see, even in the base. The banner has a three-dimensional image on it that you can paint, that you can trace out. The horse, I mean, the number of pieces in a kit. You know, just look at these. Look at these guys. Okay, so you take a look at this image. Now compare it to what you see here. All right. Okay. There's a huge change. Not just a huge change in like the level of detail or in the poses, but really a change in design philosophy. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this series. Is you see the newer iterations of these ranges, and you see a change in even the perception of what the hobby is and what the model is for. Here, these are very much created. These models here were put together for a game, for people to play a game. And they still do play games, but the whole purpose is really the game. The level of detail here, the size, all of that stuff is indicative that you put paint on it and then you put it on a table. But this stuff, this isn't designed merely for a game. A lot of this is designed as display pieces. Like, you take a look at some of these. I'm trying to find one without the 360. I'll just take this one. This is a smaller model, but this is the kind of thing that it takes serious time and effort to paint. It's very clearly not meant for merely a game. This is the sort of piece that you would paint and you'd want to display. You'd want to show others. Something that, a work that you'd be proud of, you put on Instagram, right? I mean, just, there's more detail and more effort in this banner than you'd have to put into a whole unit of these guys. And that's something. I think this is something that you can see really through, even in the, if we were to compare to the Blue Book. Now, just for maybe more of a fair comparison, these aren't the same faction, but they don't really have exactly the same faction. But say, for the sake of argument, we wanted to go with what as close as possible. This would be it. Let's see here. Good example. These are all the tree men. But even looking at the tree men, see? You see every little groove in the bark. That's not a piece that's meant strictly for the tabletop. This is the kind of thing you might want to put on your desk. So there's just been a very significant shift in the purpose of the models, how the company perceives the appeal of their models. An example of how a human might look differently, right here. And we saw the elves on the retro elves, and this is sort of the newer sculpt. This isn't new, like as in recent. This is newer. This is sort of the intermediate stage I was talking about. Again, the number of choices that you had in building just a simple spear unit, and you compare these models to these models. Massive distinction. There's a massive distinction to be made. But I would say in this intermediate step, we are seeing sort of that hybrid purpose more clearly. It's really easy, especially looking at the newer models. I think it's really easy to mistake these models for nothing more than display pieces. They may have gone too far the other side. I say this as someone who loves the models, someone who really loves the hobby. You know how much of a pain in the butt it is to paint something like this? Like, look at this. It's beautiful. You know what? My work will never look like this. It's so frustrating. You start putting all the paint on the model, and it comes out looking something kind of like that, but very much not so. And that can be really intimidating for new hobbyists. So it has its downside, right? These are beautiful to look at on a computer screen, but it's a whole other thing once you get the model in front of you and you've got a paintbrush and you're trying to make it look good. It's a tough thing. It's a mental game. And some people have the ability to just set it aside, and some people don't. I'm a perfectionist, so it pains me every time I try to paint one of these things, and it just does not come out the way I want it to. Honestly, that's part of what prevents me from painting more than I do. It's really hard for me to put paint to plastic when I know it's not going to look the way I want it to. So more wood elves. Not a huge amount of variation here between these models. Elven Beastmasters. They've got a boar, a bear, a warhound, and a wildcat. I haven't seen a bear in a long time in Warhammer. Repeating crossbow for sea elves. That's interesting. Yep, Jess Goodwin. He's sort of a legend in the hobby. Are these elves? All elves generals? I think so. Yeah, I think they are. Man, look, their proportions are just, their heads are huge compared to their limbs. High elves. So these are elves, but with pointier hats. These are cool. These are more my pace. Elven cavalry. The names of these have changed quite a bit throughout the years. Attack chariot. I've never seen this model. That's pretty neat. Wish I could get some more detail. That looks neat. I bet that looks really cool. So this hat seems like Prince Lolaire Galandir. So you can have different heroes in there. So now it looks like there's a lot of pieces here. So this looks like a more complex kit. Here's the rest of it. Yep, those are the names of them. The different heroes. Dark elves. These are elves except with spikes. And this guy looks like he has an extra arm? Or is that a snake? Not sure. Dark elves again. Crossbow, halberd. These have changed a lot. Are they riding cold ones still? Yeah, cold ones. Like dinosaurs. Repeating bolt thrower. More cold ones. Imperial dwarves? Okay. This guy's sick. I love this guy. I've always loved the dwarves. I always relate to the dwarves. I think it's because I look like a dwarf. Man, that'd be cool. I'd like to see those models. These are neat too. See, there's a lot more character in these. There's a lot more variation, more poses, a lot more character. There's even more detail. I don't know who did these sculpts. Does it say? Designed by Alan and Michael Perry. I wonder if that's the difference here. These are great models. These are models that today I'd happily purchase and paint. You still see like the game emphasis with rank and file infantry. You can see that come through clearly, but it just appears to me like there's a lot more variation. A lot more interesting to look at. Lantern, that's great. I like these a lot. Norse dwarves. I wonder why they decided to make this distinction between the different dwarves. I wonder if they were different factions, or if they played differently, or if they just looked differently. Dwarf adventurers. That's dwarf samurai. Dwarf on stilts. That's awesome. A map reader. A robber with a dagger. A runner. A rat catcher. Man, these are great. Man, what I wouldn't give to put my hands on some of these things right now. I'd love to paint these guys. Engineers. That's cool. Those are cool too. These have definitely been my favorite, the dwarf models. So far, I think they really take the cake. Here's the goblobber. Oh man, yep. So what they do with these, I mean, obviously not in real life, but what they do is they capture a goblin and they launch them in the catapult. So that's why they call it the goblobber. Oh, that's great. And it comes with this, the meat on the spit. That's awesome. And a cook. And what a great kit. Yeah, Michael Perry again. Dwarf war machines, a flame cannon, the gyrocopter, Bugman's cart. He's a brewer, a famous brewer in the world of Warhammer. Skaven. So here's the rat men. These are Jess Goodwin's. Now these are cool. I think these are some of his better models. Maybe he just had a hard time drawing, or not drawing, but sculpting humans and elves, things that are normal in the world of fantasy, because these look very well done. And I'm trying to compare it to, comparing it to the other things that I saw that Goodwin did. And these just look better, in my opinion. There's a lot of variety here, too. You can see some of the different clans, like you've got Clan Scryer and Molder. Interesting. I've never been a huge fan of Skaven. I know there's a lot of people out there who are. But for me, I don't know. They're gross. I hate rats, and these are just rats turned into people. I don't know. I think it just grosses me out. An adventure starter set. So this would be like if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you could buy this, and this would be your characters. That's pretty cool. That's something I'd like to have today. And of course your monsters. These are all things that you could use in an RPG of some sort. Okay, Lord of the Rings. This is what I thought. The Nazgul Unmounted Beast. Now this looks nothing like what you saw in the Peter Jackson film. Like, this looks like a vulture. And the Nazgul, I don't know what's going on there. Doesn't say who sculpted it. It looks like designed by the design team is what it says. Yeah, that looks really bad. I don't mind telling you. The Fellowship of the Ring. So you have to remember that this came out before the films did. At least the live action ones with from Peter Jackson. You can really see the influence of the animated movies. I'm really interested in looking at like the depiction of Legolas as a good example, and Boromir. Very different than how Jackson pictured them, but of course Bill the Pony. That guy's an OG. Knights of the Empire. Here's the humans. This is Jess Goodwin and the design team. Yeah, not a huge fan of some of these models. These knights are okay. These are neat. I bet these were the Citadel. Yep, Citadel design team. You can see the difference in these. The proportions look more reasonable. The Goodwin models, they're really lanky and spindly. But these are still kind of cool. The dead ones, that's kind of neat. The Bretonians, basically the copy of French knights, Burgundian soldiers, warriors. The foot knights, the man-at-arms. Where they're really shown, though, as a faction, is in their cavalry. I want to hurry up and get there. Here's a Bretonian knight. These look good. Yeah, of course, figures. It's Alan and Michael Perry again. These are great models, though, too. Just a real classic medieval look to them. Militia, the peasant warriors. War machines. They're cannons. That's interesting. I didn't think they had these, the Bretonians, but I guess, the human factions were combined. Pot de Feu, early Bretonian cannon. That's interesting. Swivel gun. Ballista. A mantlet. Oh, is it a shield? Never heard of that. Got your War Machine crews there. Norse, yeah, Norska. I think they eventually they were folded into the Warriors of Chaos faction. Not too interested here. Wizards. You got some that are like based on your classic wizard tropes. This is something that again, it's hard to see with the level of detail that's in this image. But what they did later with the wizards more or less embodied an element, and so they began to take on the form of the element that they embodied. So you have like a fire wizard whose hair was like flames, and a life wizard who had like vines growing out of his shoes. Yeah, it doesn't look like they really did much with that yet. They have clerics, like your priests. And I don't think they really developed some of the lore with the Cult of Sigmar yet, so they look like just pretty standard cleric units. And the ninjas, something they didn't spend much time on for very long, but yep, they spent some time in Asian culture. Ninja assassins. I wonder if they're going to do anything with Cathay. Oh, here we go. Chaos. Yeah, new model's way better. Just to compare the Bloodthirsters models. I mean, it's not even fair, really, to compare them, but I'm going to. Alright, so this is the new Bloodthirster. This is the old one. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, which one really inspires more fear and what looks like a Bloodthirster? I think it's this one. I think this guy takes the cake. Yeah, I mean, look at this guy's face. Look at his flail, his axe, the skulls on him. And this guy looks like just like a grumpy old man. Here's the Keeper of Secrets. That one's kind of neat. Yeah, Michael Perry. Here we go, guys. The Great Unclean One. Allie Morrison. Yeah, see the new version of that. I like the new version way better. Here's the new Great Unclean One. Yikes. Gross. This guy, he's pretty gross. I mean, again, you see the difference between something meant for the tabletop and something meant as a display piece, right? Like this guy has a face on his tongue. More of a dark interpretation of it. The Nurgling down there, those guys are sick. Rodigus. Oh my gosh, look how disgusting this is. His arm has a face hanging under his flab. And he's got maggots coming out of his mouth. This is disgusting. This is so gross. But see, so there's a whole degree of detail here. And a really strong design philosophy present. Whereas here it's just like a blob, right? So to review, oh, that's a thumbs up. Very, very mediocre medium thumb, sideways thumb here. More to change. Yeah. Looks very similar to the modern one, except obviously the modern one's better. Man, these guys just look nuts. They didn't even look like distinguishable. The juggernauts, yeah. Those have changed a lot. Interesting. Slaanesh. Fiends. Mounts. Oh, what's going on there? Plague bearers. Look like orcs, just dirtier. Nurglings, beasts of Nurgle. A palanquin of Nurgle. Flying discs for Tzeentch. Pink horrors, blue horrors, champions of Khorne, champions of Slaanesh, champions of Nurgle, champions of Tzeentch, chaos warriors. Yeah, these guys look nuts. Straight nuts. Yep. Chaos Chariot. Looks identical to a lot of the other things we've seen. Chaos Knights. Chaos Sorcerers. Familiars. Weird picture. Centaurs. Hounds. Oh, let's go with the Centaurs. Okay. I mean, it looks like a centaur. Hounds. What's going on with this one? Oh, some of these are weird. It's supposed to be Cerberus. Beastmen. These are the old Beastmen. Yep, just good one. You can tell here. You can tell with some of the telltale signs here. That's a classic. Chaos Thugs. Alright. Chaos Thugs with a Warhammer. That's very Warhammer. Chaos Dwarves. Here they are. These are cool. And, of course, yep, the parries. Kauzak Doomlord. Doomax, the Dreaded. Master of Madness. Drummond Drone Olsen. Mad Marek, Trollbiter. Foaming Mad Furrickson. That's insane. What is that? A boar centaur? It says a tenderizing hammer? So they come into battle ready to tenderize their opponents? In a pounding fist? Spiked mace? This is great. I love this. The tenderizer frame. Oh, that's good. This one has a slicing blade and a morning star. Oh, that's cool. I like that. The Juggernaut. Yeah, Michael Perry. It seems like we have a little bit of a pattern here. More of the guys associated with it. Ogres. Boy, have those changed a lot. Holy mackerel. Marsh trolls. The Famir. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that these were Citadel models originally, because Forge World sort of started off as an independent model maker for alternative sculpts, ended up becoming like a department or a branch of Games Workshop. They made them out of resin with newer sculpts, and I just assumed that was the first time they had appeared in Warhammer, but I was wrong. They were one of the original groups, it looks like, or relatively speaking. Minotaur Lords. Minotaurs, which I think are just folded in with Beastmen. Giant monsters, a Chimera, a Griffin, a Manticore. A giant Scorpion, a Quaddle, Jabberwock, Spider. Here we go, Undead. I'm all about the Undead. Skeletons. Classic. Wow. This guy's coming out of the ground. I like that. Scythes. Halberds. Wounded skeleton? Yeah, see, pile of bones. That's more like it. I don't think you can wound a skeleton. These rising from the grave models, those are great. Why does this one have like a... That one has like a modern military rifle. He's got a bandolier. Oh man, that's great. More skeletons. Cool, cool. Even more. A bomb. That's great. Club, swords. Skeleton cavalry. A rotting flesh horse. Blech. These are neat. A lizard flesh horse? Boy, you can make a lot of different kinds of cavalry here. Here's their war machine. It has a banner pole and a bone haft. Oh, yeah, so this one has riders. It doesn't have like a weapon on it necessarily. Skull chucker. Night horrors. Sarcophagus. Wow. Spectral claw, carrion perch. Ethereals like the ghosts. Those have changed. Zombies, yep, of course. Can't leave home without them. Can't get more undead than that. Mighty Empires. Yeah, see, this is something that I would like to see them re-release. They kind of did something like it. They did some sort of... Games Workshop made some sort of like a book, an expansion for Age of Sigmar. I think it was first edition, where they had a bunch of battles that took place in the Realm of Fire, and they had this big map, and you could distribute resources across it, and you would... You start with a small war band, and you grow into a larger force, and you spread across the map. It's like a map-based campaign. So Mighty Empires was like that, except three-dimensional. But this looks quite different, though. Am I in the wrong... Maybe this is more like Epic? I don't know. If you know, please comment below. Let me know the difference. Blood Bowl. Okay. Didn't play it. Not interested. Yep. Okay. Uh-huh. Yep. Don't play it now either. Plastics. Okay. The bases, they're all slotted. Warhammer regiments? I wonder what that's all about. Maybe those are like battle boxes. Plastic horses. I've had a bunch of these. They stuck with these for a long time. Especially for like the pewter hero models that you would use. You buy one of. They like to use those horses for that. Space Crusade. Hero Quest. Skeleton Army. Alright, and that's the magazine. So I'd say overall, looking at being at the end of the second catalog, the 1991 miniatures, I think they probably hold some sort of nostalgic attachment for the old-timers in the hobby. But just speaking as somebody who's coming at the hobby from the perspective of the late 2010s, like 2015, 2016 is when I started, I see a lot of models that really look like they serve no other purpose than just filling in a spot in a larger unit of models for a game. They're not the kind of things that I'd like to buy, paint up, and set on my counter or on a desk or a bookshelf. But they do look very playable. They look very easy to assemble, very easy to paint. You could get away with 3, 4, 5 colors. Not a lot of detail to use washes and edge highlighting with. So I think I think efficiency, cost, and the game were the priorities here for sculpting and designing these models. Whereas today, I think we may have gone so complex that we've perhaps we've lost our way here. Now, I've painted quite a few models. In terms of fantasy models, not very many. I've painted more science fiction models. The army that I've painted the most of would be the Tau Empire. So, taking a look at their models, this was a very large model. You might think it would take a long time because of the size, but the way that it's designed, you could spend 15 hours on this, 20 hours on this, get it looking really sharp. So there are exceptions. Like, just because I'm saying the modern models have gotten too detailed, I'm not necessarily saying all of the modern models have, but I think that especially with some of the newer Age of Sigmar models, they look fantastic, especially in the box. We were looking at these earlier. I mean, you walk in a store, you see one of these fully painted by a professional on a box, and you're like, dang, look at that. That looks awesome. I'd love to play that game. I'd love to get that on the tabletop. It's never going to look like this when you paint it. And putting it together, it has 2 points of contact to the base. This thing's going to be snapping off constantly. Look at these tassels. Man, they're going to fall off. I mean, you're lucky if you get them on to the model before it breaks. Same thing here. Like, yeah, beautiful model, but these pieces, they look like they're just asking to get broken. Same thing with the CVS receipts up on top here. Like, these are the kind of things that, you don't necessarily think about when you see it on the box art, but it's not going to turn out the way you want it to. These mountains, that's a good example. Look at the amount of detail, the amount of work they put into the freehand here. It's just, there's an insane amount of detail in these. And again, it's a beautiful model. I'm not saying they shouldn't make beautiful models. I'm just saying that we may have gone from one extreme to the other. I like these models, but they're just honestly too detailed for me to be like, yeah, I'm going to buy, I'm going to put down $200, buy some of this, and paint it and have a lot of fun with it. Like, look at that. You're going to buy that in a second. Anyone walks into a store who's really into fantasy models, they're going to look at that and they're going to say, I need that in my collection. But you're not going to be happy with the end result unless you're a professional. So, I don't know. I don't know really what I'm trying to say, I guess. I'm just saying, like, the new models are really nice, and everyone can say that they think they're beautiful, and that there's a lot of enjoyment to be had in beholding the box art. But there's a difference between the paint quality of a professional and mine. And so you're starting from this position where the model is leaving you dissatisfied. And then you enter into the game, and, oh, I was too rough with it, broke it. Okay, that's not great. And then over here, again, I've said this a bunch, but most of the models, the sculpts, are really unsatisfying. They're the kind of thing that, like, you don't even care if you paint because it's just like a piece of metal. There's not a lot of detail, not a lot of interest in the piece. So there's got to be a happy medium, and I think there are. I think there's some really good pieces in the science fiction line that exemplify this principle I'm talking about. And I did an unboxing of the Black Templar box the other day. I think these are guys that highlight an increased level of detail, but keep in mind that, yeah, the whole point is to get it on a tabletop eventually. You see on this model, Chaplain Grimaldus, you see in this professionally painted model 7, 8 different kinds of paints, and not including like your washes and your highlights. And everything looks very doable. It's mostly black with a very easy highlight, and then you got some red and some some flesh tone. So this is something very attainable. This is brand new too. I think looking at some of the bad guys in the Chaos faction, Maggotkin and Nurgle, one of my favorite factions. Really cool models, really great, but if you've never done this before, just try imagining painting this. I mean, look at the blending that went in here. It's crazy. It's really crazy. So, great models. They don't come out looking that way. But I think if I still had to take it, choose one and leave the other, I'd take the new, leave the old. I'd rather it be something too complicated that I can never get to look the right way than something that just doesn't generate interest. So, well, that does it for the 1991 Red and Blue catalog. If you see here, there are a ton. I think I'm going to pick one, but I'd like to hear your input. So if there is a specific catalog that you see on your screen that you'd say, boy, I'd really like to take a look at that and see what that has. Any of these blue ones, these gray ones, you can't see. They're not currently available, as he says. But please leave a comment down below if there's something that you want to go to next. I'll pick the one with the most votes, and if I don't see anything, I'm just going to choose one. Something from mid to late 90s, give us a nice leap here in a few years to see how the styles have changed. Alright, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. It's this video in front of more people. And leave a comment regarding the questions I've asked earlier, or just your opinion on it. Try to get back to all the comments. Don't always make it there. So, thanks for joining me, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.